All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed a very low-carbon lunch, and it was a good segue into lunch with our earlier talks on food sustainability and choices. We have our next session is really about how you can tell if a choice is sustainable or not. And it's going to be led off by our first keynote speaker, Gary ZImmer. Gary's with Midwest Bioag. He's the founder and owner of Midwest Bioag, and he's always asked questions and looked at many ways of farming with an open mind. For 25 years, Gary has been evaluating farm practices, a process that presented him with many interesting observations and methods for successful biological farming. In the fall of 1979, Gary and his family moved to Spring Green, Wisconsin, where in the 1980s he and 3 partners started Midwest Bioag. After Gary, we have 3 quick-fire talks, and I'll just introduce them quickly. We have Valerie Stull, who's a PhD student advised by Dr. Jonathan Patz and Dr. Michael Bell in the Nelson Institute for Environmental and Resources program at UW-Madison. Valerie's research focuses on food security, where she investigates links between agriculture and health, and she's examining alternative protein sources that require fewer energy-intensive inputs. She's got a great talk coming up, and you'll see that in a little bit. Next, we're going to have Ann Schutte-Palmer. Ann is an environmental scientist at GreenSeal, where she evaluates products and services for the certification of GreenSeal's sustainability standards. So you'll be hearing more about what GreenSeal is doing to help make our choices sustainable and help inform us on that. We're going to round out this session with Dr. Majid Sarmati. Professor Sarmati directs graduate students' research in the School of Human Ecology here at the university and at the College of Engineering. His teaching and research incorporates the topic of sustainability, and that he's a sustainability carpet project which saved $40 million for the state of California. I wish it was Wisconsin. State of California on one project, and it's received numerous awards, including California Governor's Award for Energy and Environmental Leadership for the U.S. Senate and the U.S. Congress many awards from California's Senate and Congress Award from the Mayor of Los Angeles. So we've got a great lineup for you on this next session. Again, we're going to start with Gary ZImmer, the owner and founder of Midwest Bioag. Thank you. Please welcome Gary.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's Angela's fault that I am here. I spoke at a different conference on sustainability and with this grass-fed beef thing. Actually, I'm a dairy nutritionist by training, and I graduated from this university in 1968 and started my career down a path that's taken me all over this planet. I got involved in what we call biological farming, and I will talk about that, those concepts. Some of the messages, I'm quite different in my approach and speech. I've been on the road for 2 months now doing meetings to farmers all over the United States. I was in Idaho yesterday, so and I'm going to have to leave here a little early because the organic conference in La Crosse is going on right now, so the Upper Midwest Organic Conference is there. So anyway, this whole thing about sustainability and how your food dollar can represent, I just want to tell the view from the countryside and how we see feed and some of the changes that I see coming in agriculture, and it's actually an exciting time, and how your dollar and how you do as a consumer has an influence on that. Actually, I'm not real big on the word sustainable because I'm not sure what it really means. We focus on something called biological. I started this business 25 years ago called biological farming. Everybody was focusing on chemistry and chemical inputs and protective compounds and altering plants and all these things. And I said, why don't we focus on the life in the soil? It's a living live system. Let's focus on the biology out here. And so I actually say, well, why would I want to sustain a broken system? So my whole concept is let's get it regenerated. Let's get it back to another level. See, what's going to really happen out here, I'm not concerned about growing enough feed to feed the world. I think it's about the education and the teaching and the training of what's coming down out here. So actually, I don't mind the word ecological. I speak at a conference on eco-intensive agriculture. Organic, my own family farm is organic. We farm by Spring Green organically. We have an organic dairy herd. We're a fairly large organic farm. So I'm going to the organic conference. And I spoke a couple of years ago at a conference in Korea on International Organic Conference, and there was 1,200 people from 76 countries. And I said, can we feed the world organically? And of course, I'm at an organic conference. They raise their hands, and I say, I beg to differ. It's too difficult. All land's not suited for organic. All land's not suited to be no-till. Only 20% of the land is soon to be no-till. You got a heavy clay, poor draining ground to put a whole bunch of residues on top, you'll never get a crop planted next year. And organic is just way too intense. And I said to you at the organic conference, but you need to pat yourself on the back, because the conventional world out here is copying our agricultural practices. So somewhere in the middle, we're going to come up with a farming system that makes a lot of sense and is quite sane in here. So organic to me, you know what that is? It's clean air, clean water, clean food, and it's a system of farming and not doing. I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, so now I must be organic. It's not about what we did do, it's about what we didn't do. I was involved in writing the organic standards, and they're not being interpreted as we originally thought they should have been. What gets me all over the planet, I actually am an author of these 2 books, and the first one came out, which is kind of interesting. I'm revising that first one over there. It's called Biological Farmer, and I've been kind of given the credit for those titles. I'm revising. It was written in the 90s, and the word GMO wasn't even in it. The changing of agriculture that's taking place is just unbelievable. That second book, my daughter, that's On Our Farm by Spring Green, my daughter Leilani, who is the head of our education and training for our company, has helped me write that book. So these explain these systems of farming that I'm going to get into. This is actually from Ireland, and I'm going back in a few weeks over to Ireland. And see, biological farming is really an approach to food production that respects the natural processes of the farm in order to yield top quality products, provide a viable living for the producer, and sustain long-term productivity. That's biological farming really is. And the bottom one is really understands the necessity for a balance. We need minerals. We need physical, we need earthworms, we need biology, and we got to feed the soil life. So it's a whole different view. It's a systems approach to farming. We recognize that the soil is a living, live thing. You realize that most production agricultural systems treat the ground like dirt. They don't say, what would I do because I want to get more fungal population? Or how would I get more biological bacteria population? What about feeding? And what about this huge diversity of soil life? See, we can solve a lot of problems by going back to that soil and farming that soil in a different way. That's our farm, and that's why the Moses Conference is starting today in La Crosse, and we were in 2008 selected as the Organic Farm of the Year. Our field days are always the 3rd Tuesday in August, and you're always welcome to come to our farm. We farm Taliesin, the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, if you ever get to Spring Green, and I'm on the board at Taliesin. You're going to see some real interesting agricultural projects coming out of Taliesin, although it's a school of architecture. We were selected for that award just because of the fact that our farming methods were intense. See, we as an organic farmer refuse to take less yield than conventional farming. Why would we? If yield is minerals, sunshine, and water, why would I take less? Because I farm organic. I take less because my system is failing, and I said, if I can put on some chemistry, I can substitute some of the things that are necessary in a failed system, although you got to have the right kind of land to do this. We were making our own cheeses, and we got a conscious carnivore black earth meats. I got into Lonesome Stone flour mill. We're hugely involved in the local food movement also around Spring Green. That's our farm by Spring Green, right along Highway 130, actually south of Lone Rock. I tell people you don't need directions to my farm. If you go out in a few weeks, we're the only green one. You drive down the road and you find green fields and you pull in, you're there. Everybody else has got theirs brown. If you look in the background, that's our neighbors, and we're the ones up front. Now, we are an organic dairy farm, and we go to Cedar Grove with our cheese. So I'm a dairy nutritionist and took dairy nutrition to the soil to create ideal feed for dairy cows. And now I fertilize and manage every crop you can possibly manage. That variety of alfalfa was selected on a balanced fertility program. We have research stations now, breeding stations that are producing over 10 tons an acre. And not only how we select our genetics, but how we fertilize it. We're a legume-dominated farm because that's how we manage our farm. So we grow those super quality kind of crops out here. I spent my whole career figuring out what quality was. Now, we can take this to any food. It doesn't have to be food for cows. I get involved with bananas and mangoes and anything you can possibly imagine. To get a quality type product that the insects leave alone has got higher nutrition and better taste in it, it really takes this balance of minerals. I want to plant this. Whatever crop you're growing, if it's extremely high in calcium, that's a hard mineral. Just because your pHs are right doesn't mean you get calcium. I want something really high in phosphorus. Some of the biggest battles I have out here over phosphorus. Everybody's, oh, we got to reduce phosphorus. Phosphorus is the good guy, not the bad guy. You want to get high energy, high yielding crops? Nobody's growing 300 bushel corn on low soil phosphorus levels. Nobody. And you see, that's the other thing that's radically changing how the farmers look at things. So I want high phosphorus. Now, that's got to come through biology. You just can't dump more on the land, dump it on top of the ground, and not expect to get in our water. I say the dumbest idea man ever came up with is put nutrients in solution and not expect them to get in our water. Why? So I spent my whole career putting what we call carbon-based fertilizers. Why don't we hook that mineral to something before we put it down in the ground? So it can't leach, can't erode, can't tie up, can't get away from us if we got healthy, good soils. So then I want my high magnesium, that's photosynthesis. Our trace minerals is high energy. I did my graduate work on sulfur. These sulfur-containing amino acids, they're highly critical to keep a cow healthy. What gets our plants in trouble with needing insecticides and fungicides and pesticides is excess free nitrogen. Nitrogen is the culprit out here, in our opinion, not phosphorus. And which, you take a cow and you feed her too much soluble nitrogen, and you're going to kill her. That's what we spend our time trying to get stopped out here. That's on my organic farm. We grow some incredible crops. I have grown 3 years of corn in a row. These are quite some. This is 3 years after we get started on a farm. We have a production system that we are focused on growing the right kind of organisms that do this. We're organic. I don't buy nitrogen. That's little nitrogen added to those crops. Last year on our farm, we grew sweet corn for the canning factory in Reedsburg. And first he called up and he said, "You want to grow sweet corn?" And as a farmer, my family involved with this thing quite heavily. I actually want the award for United States of America because I have 3 children and 2 of them are dairy farms. And you tell me anybody else that's got that achievement. Everybody else's kids left the dairy farm and mine got into farming. But the canning factory said, "We want to grow some organic sweet corn." And so I said 2 questions a farmer can ask. What are you paying? And they said, "What do you got to have?" Now, farmers aren't used to that, but we're organic. And then they said, my next question was, how much does it yield? And he said, conventional guys can get 8 tons, you organic guys ought to get 5. Now, that offends me. I signed the contract. That's 10.6 tons. Now, it's under irrigation. We do have some irrigation, and we're going to grow about 90 acres of corn this year because we actually have quite an increased yield over what their conventional was last year. So sustainability, in my definition, is 25 worms in a cubic foot and 0 soil loss. If you got that going on, now you're sustainable. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't cheat to try to get that. And then the other thing, you got to cycle nutrients and cycle water. You can't have water running off with nutrients getting away from you if you're going to really truly be sustainable. This is Marsden University at Marsden at Iowa State University. To change agriculture is a stroke of a pen. All I got to do is subsidize or find a small grain that can feed the people without killing them. And subsidize the farmer to grow. So instead of corn beans, I got corn beans and a small grain. The small grains are harvested in the summertime. I can then grow a cocktail mixture of cover crops. I can now put my manures out there in the time of the year. They can become a part of the organic carbon biological cycle. So Marsden University, 23 years they've been doing this. They added oats into rotation. They reduced the need for the long rotation, putting oats in there. They had better yields of both corn and soybeans. They reduced the need for fertilizers, herbicides by 88%, and the amount of toxins in the groundwater reduced by 200-fold by just putting one more crop into rotation. It's that simple. We subsidize the wrong stuff. So that's my whole thing about I want to regenerate that soil to a living life thing full of minerals. I said I want to do everything I can to get our soils healthy and mineralized. That's our whole approach. I want to make sure I got this soil health out here, and it's called my eco-intensification. Last year, it was the American Year of Soil Health, and this year it's the International Year of Soil Health. And we tell our people it's really quite simple. This is a big part of it. Now, I don't know, I can never speak any without offending someone, so I'm going to give my best shot right now. Yes, water's got to infiltrate. It can't be waterlogged. So we run big, deep rippers to make sure the water soaks in the ground. And now guys put a lot of tile in the ground. We have to recycle nutrients. That doesn't mean sucking it back up through your well after you polluted the water. That means recycling with carbon and biology. Minimum disturbance. You can't plow, dig, and disc every year, but I can honestly say I work with nobody that's no-till. They all do something. They call themselves no-till. They get blades, knives, chains hanging everywhere on their farm. So minimum disturbance. I want to take the stuff that's on top and put it back in the ground to feed my soil life. I can't have a crust on top of the ground. That's why they run vertical tillage machines, because the soil's got to breathe. You got to have a huge amount of diversity. You got to have living roots. There's juices coming from those plants to control the soil life. It took me 20 years to figure that out. That's why we have a diversity. Minerals is where I'm going to step on someone's toes. Our NRCS didn't put minerals on that list. I did. See, minerals, if you want to change agriculture, and I don't know how else to say this thing, but buying the cheapest sources of N, P, and K and aligning to a 6.5 pH is not going to change agriculture. We need calcium. We need different sources. We need to have them hooked to carbon. So I've traveled with all these guys that speak at these meetings from the NRCS about this soil. They don't write minerals up there because they can't, because that's already been defined by all our university soil science departments. So we stand against them all the time. They say there's other options than what we've been taught out here. And then I got to have this residue decay going on. So what we had when I used to years ago, I said, when I was from the 60s here at the university, and someone was talking about doing home internet school. You know what I learned at the university? Never quit asking questions. You question the military, you question the government, you question the professors, you question the doctors, you question the production of agricultural system. We question everything. That's what we walked out of the 60s, out of this university within our heads. We all farmed in one way. This is from a veterinarian from northeast Iowa. He was really on to what went wrong with our food production system in numbers of years. And he was a veterinarian. He brought home a two-headed pig for his daughter. And when she fed one head, the other head got mad. Now, if you think about that, I said, that's what we're in the food. We got organic and we got conventional, and they're all fighting out here. When we got to recognize we're all in the food production system, we're all the same creature, we got to do a better way of taking care of this environment and raising quality food. And see, my whole thing is that we can do a lot better. This is a farm in Iowa, conventional. Thousands of acres. Look at those soils. Look, see those little dots on top? Those are earthworm castings. 50 worms under one root plant out here. They now are at averaging 260 bushel of corn. See, what's changing in agriculture? It's not about feeding the world. It's about saving this planet while we feed the world. Someone grew 500 bushel of corn last year. Did you read that in the paper? The record last year, 7 people entered the national corn growing contest with over 450 bushel corn. So what happened if you're in Illinois producing 160 bushel corn and your neighbor grows 400? What do you think? Everything got more expensive. The train is going back and forth across that Midwest. They're all chasing 300 bushel corn. This farm averages 252 bushel corn last year with half the nitrogen than any other farm, and they're conventional farmers. From those beautiful, healthy soils and how we farm on those lands. So what's really going to radically change, we can really increase our production system to double our yields, which most farms in the Midwest are chasing. We're into zone tillage. Instead of farming like this, we're going to farm like this. And so we're chasing those high yields out here, these guys are. They're not going to get there doing more of what they've been doing. They got to change the farming system and get healthy soils. That's the driving force behind this. I was just in Idaho yesterday. This is high pHs, high salts, high ammonias on this farm right out here. That is a cover crop mix that they put water in. We got a 50% yield increase on potatoes last year. They never grew over 600 sack potato, over 400 before, and last year hit 600 sack potato crop. But the minerals are now tied in this carbon biological cycle or added to this compost. And so that now we can make those changes on that thing. So it's not about feed the world versus organic or save the world. It's about taking the best knowledge we have and making a production farm system out here. So your dollar to me, this is a farm in Virginia, by the way, 1 year soil building, 1 year vegetables, a 50-acre, $1 million CSA you're looking at. And there's no insects, no diseases, no bugs, they're all organic. And so I say we take all the best ideas to make this production system work out here. This is at Taliesin, the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation. The young lady on the right-hand side here, Wright, she's from Brazil. She's got a master's degree in agronomy, and her husband's on that tractor. There's no way, biggest fear in agriculture, no kids can get in the game anymore. My family was the last entry into large-scale farming, conventional. Now they're gardeners. And so they're going to try to do 15 acres, just 2 people with all this automated equipment. So we're setting up a vegetable training education center at Taliesin. That's Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation. So anyway, the vegetables and things we grow. So my last little segment, I wanted to talk about the farms and the yields they got out here. And I was visiting with the people at lunch out here. There's one more thing on conventional agriculture. What's really excited what's going on in the world, the future large farm will never spread another pound of manure. It's over. And it's the most exciting project. That's why I was in Idaho. 30,000 cows. They got anaerobic digesters, and we learned how to take all the nutrients back out and take all the fiber back out of that manure, and we can make fertilizer on the farm. They'll spread fertilizer now when and where they need it. They'll never spread another pound of manure, and they're being popped up all across this nation. We got one going up in Indiana, one in Missouri, 2 or 3 in Idaho, one in Minnesota about doing that. So this is Taliesin, and I just want to show grass-fed beef. There is no such thing as grass-fed beef in nature. That's our farm. You can see off to the left that kind of a skinnier one. He takes the right genetics. We have the Black Earth Meat Market. So I tell people you can buy that kind of beef, or you can buy grass-fed beef. Now, grass-fed beef and organic have got growing pains. Putting your dollar to support those 2 industries is going to help change agriculture because it's putting pressure on people. It's putting pressure on the food system. Just like people getting sick and health issues is putting pressure on the food system. I don't know. I'm not so interested in eating food from that system out here. 2 of the 4 largest meat processing plants in North America are putting a grass-fed beef line, and the other one's over in Australia putting one up. So the real issue is it's not only good for you, there's health difference between if that was raised on forages or if it's done on grain. Now it takes genetics, it takes super management. This is not an easy system of farming, but it is, I see, is what the future is, because it's better for the farm, better for the land, better for the profitability of what goes on out here. So I was just at a farm yesterday in Idaho. 1,000 cows in the last 3 years. We've increased the cow numbers on that farm by 200 head and grew not 1 more acre. That's intensive management of the land they have. And that's what you're going to see changing in agriculture. And that's what I think makes it sustainable. A lot of cattle per acre, move them through, graze them at a different size, and that's in California. One side of the fence is open stock grazing. So grazing is huge, and I think supporting grass-fed beef is another direction to put your food dollar in a system that's going to get better and better and better. And right now you might have to grind it, you might have to chew a little bit, you might have to age it a little bit longer, but people will get good at it. So that's my topic, and I appreciate you coming, and I thank you for letting me share my thoughts.